Okay, this lesson is probably going to be one of the longer ones because the amount of content I'm trying to share is pretty vast in this section. This section is all about customer research methodologies, and I'm going to run you through a variety of methodologies that you can use. Because this session is so long, and I like to kind of be a little informal, you may see me stop and take a sip of water as my mouth gets dry. You may see me pause for a moment to look over at my notes and scroll through them just because it's such a large session. Particularly for this lesson, what I recommend is having the handout open as well, because if you haven't caught on yet, what I'm not doing is showing you a bunch of slides and trying to bore you to death. I'm trying to just speak to you and have that be a little bit better experience, and I hope it works. So again, this one could be long. My mouth's already getting dry from talking a lot. So please bear with me. It may be a little more informal than some of the other lessons because it's going to be long and I may need to take small pauses. All right, so let's talk about customer research methodologies. If you're going to accomplish market fit, whether that's problem market fit, platform market fit, product market fit, you absolutely have to understand your target customer at a very intimate level. Pay attention to the word I'm using there, an intimate level. You need to know them in the deepest amount of details that you can. When I talk to people about target markets, one of the things people will say to me is, well, it's attorneys. That's still too broad. Well, it's attorneys that do estate planning. That's still too broad for a V1 product. Well, it's attorneys that do estate planning for single moms. That's still too broad of a definition of understanding your target market. When I talk about your target market, and in product management, when we talk about understanding your product market, we talk about your ideal customer profile, your ICP. So if I use that phrase, you'll know what I'm talking about. You need to know them intimately because your ICP helps you focus your marketing and your go-to-market activities in the right place. It improves your product development because when you know your ICP really well, you build features and functionality that will appeal to that target market. By doing this, you increase customer satisfaction. You make them happier. Why? Because they feel that the product that you built was just for them. And that's a really important feeling and emotion to invoke. And all this adds up to more revenue, more profitability. Now, you can pause right here if you want to, or at the end of the lesson, be sure you go and find the ideal customer profile template that I'm providing you. This is a template I built for myself. I built it using a piece of software called Notion. Notion has, or had, I can't remember, has a free plan, I believe. And at the very worst, it's worth paying $48 a year for at the time. That's what this costs. I pay that to have it, and I use it for everything. As a matter of fact, you can't see it, but it's open over to the left where I have all the lessons I have to record for this course. I built this course there. I do my journaling in Notion. I do all kinds of things. I keep task lists. I do all kinds of things in Notion. I'm not sharing this because I have an affiliate link. I do have an affiliate link, but I'm not sharing that. The reason I'm sharing is because that is where I built this template. And you will need Notion to be able to use it, but they have a good plan. And even if they don't, it's worth the $48. Okay, enough advertising for Notion. It's a really great product, Now, a lot of the things I'm going to suggest to build out your ICP, build out your ideal customer profile, these customer research methodologies, some of them are in person and some of them are not. I want to be absolutely clear. Please do not sacrifice getting an intimate understanding of your ICP and taking the simple route. What a lot of entrepreneurs and founders I talk to do is they will take the simple route by sending out surveys through email or something like that. While that can be helpful for reaching a broader audience of people and understanding their pain points, there's nothing that beats actually talking to people, preferably person to person. But if anything, maybe over video where you can see their body language and things like that. So keep that in mind as I go through all of these. Because this session is in writing and I'm providing that handout to you, I'm going to move through these at least relatively quickly. So the first one, customer research methodology, is what I just talked about, which is surveys and questionnaires. They work really good because they're versatile and you can administer them across various channels. You can use email, a website, an app, an app on a phone. You can do all kinds of things. The other thing about surveys is in the way that they're captured, if done right, they capture both qualitative and quantitative information. Qualitative is descriptive data. Quantitative is more numerical data. And they capture both of these if you build them right. Now, some best practices for surveys. Keep your survey concise and focused. Try not to bounce around. Do it like a story. A story starts here and builds to the end. Try not to bounce between questions. Try and have a nice flow with the questions that you ask. Use a mix of different types of questions. Multiple choice, open-ended, a rating, those types of things. Make sure your questions are clear and unbiased. You don't want to ask a question that leads your ICP to the answer you were hoping to hear. Remember, when we're gathering this information, it's all to help us build a better product. Customer research methodologies, by the way, happen at the very first bookend when you're ideating on the product you're going to build and you're trying to validate demand. The other great thing about surveys is they offer incentives to encourage participation. There's ways you can build that in. And I sort of alluded to this, but avoid leading questions with surveys. Try not to ask a question that makes it easy for the person to tell you what you want to hear. An example of that is, would you buy my product? In a survey, it's so easy for me to say yes and move on. There's no risk from the survey taker's perspective to say that. Even if you follow up with me later and try and get me to buy your product, I just don't have to answer your email. So keep all that in mind. The second type of customer methodology is interviews. Interviews allow an in-depth conversation with your ICP preferably, and it allows you to uncover a lot of insights and understanding of their motivations, right? You get to see body language. You get to you get to hear tone and how they answer a question. Does the pitch of their voice go up, and do they get excited when you mention a feature that they would like? Does it go down? Do they look away from you? Are they afraid to make eye contact when you ask them what they would pay for a solution? Interviews can be great. I prefer them in person, but they can work over Zoom and things like that. Best practices. Use a structured interview guide. Some people say that you should share your interview guide ahead of time. Some people say you should not. I prefer that you don't, so that you can note any type of surprise reaction from the person being interviewed. As with surveys, and ask open-ended questions. And most importantly, with interviews, make sure you're talking the least amount possible. What I recommend is asking your question and then forcing yourself to shut up and do nothing else. The only reason you should speak again is if the person you're interviewing is asking for some sort of clarification. I recommend not cutting them off when you think of another question to add because of their answer. Make a note of it and come back to it when they're finished. Also, get their permission, but recording an interview is very powerful. Why? You can come back and visit it later, or you can share it with other people on your team. Maybe you have a sales staff that would like to see what customers are saying about your upcoming product. Maybe you have a marketing team that would like to draft materials around the customer interviews. These are really, really important. By the way, customer interviews should be one-to-one, not multiple customers. That is called a focus group, which is the third customer research methodology that you can use. Focus groups are good because you're bringing together a group of potential customers, preferably people who fit your ICP definition, and you're getting them to discuss a topic. So instead of you having to have discussion and dialogue with them, you're watching them have dialogue and feed off of each other. Sometimes in focus groups, I've seen one person give one answer and another person in that group give a completely different answer. And that forced a lot of dialogue that's very interesting and uncovers a lot of great things about your product. Also in a focus group, what you're doing is seeing potential additional ICPs. What I mean by that, maybe that outlier person that had a different comment is not your perfect ICP, but they could be perfect for the next iteration of your product when you add new things to it. Recruit participants across your target audience, but also preferably a lot of diversity across your target audience. If you're not experienced in moderating a focus group, consider hiring someone who is. An experienced moderator will get the most out of a panel. One of the things I've seen people struggle with is controlling a focus group of people. The focus group can get rolling, get off task, and if you're not a strong moderator, you may have trouble getting them back on task. Make sure it's a relaxed, open environment. Give them things, make it worth their time to be part of a focus group. Give them things that make it worth their time, whether you have candy there or something nice to drink, those types of things. And as I mentioned earlier with the focus group, make sure you're paying attention for non-verbal cues, not what they're saying, but their body language. Those types of things go a long, long way. The fourth type of customer research methodology is usability testing. This works really well when you have a physical prototype or some sort of software, something that the ICP can touch, smell, listen to, so hear, something they can interact with. This is really important because then you get to see the ways in which they interact with it. A good example would be having software that your potential ICPs get to play with and experience. Maybe they experience it on their own accord. Instead of telling them exactly what you want them to do with the software and giving them test scripts, maybe you just let them play and see what they can do. I have had instances where I've been building software and I've done usability testing. One of my favorite things to do is to say, try and break it, which means a lot of people who are participating will look at me in a weird way, but I will say, it's okay. Try to break it. Do something weird with the software. Do something weird with the prototype. Bend it further than it's supposed to be bent. Those types of things. So usability testing can be very, very, very efficient if you have the right type of product. Usability testing does not work for every single product. A good example would be services that aren't products. Services are hard to do usability testing with. Best practices around this are assign realistic tasks that can be completed. Don't make tasks so hard that no one can do it and they can't do it in a reasonable amount of time. Pay attention to their behavior as they're manipulating your product. Still watch for the nonverbal cues and watch for frustration or excitement on their face, those types of things. Another thing you can do with certain types of software is you can have usability testing that uses eye tracking, screen recording, things like heat maps. A heat map is when they're clicking on a particular place on a website. You can track those types of things with usability testing. The fifth type of customer research methodology is social media listening. Go on social media and see what's being said about products like yours, including your own product and your competitors. Pay attention to things about customer sentiment. How do they feel? How do they speak about your product or products like that? Pay attention to brand perception and trending topics. You can use social media listening tools, things like Google Alerts. You can use that to track things that are being said. You can analyze sentiment. You can, and this is the most important piece of social media listening, it's not just about listening, it's about engaging. You can engage back in conversations with your ICP on social media. The sixth type of customer research methodology is your customer journey mapping. What this is mapping the customer journey in a visual way as they go through each and every step. So for example, if you have a gas station and you are trying to understand how customers go through the journey of buying gas at the pump and then coming inside to your store to buy things, you could map that customer journey literally step for step. They turn into your parking lot. They have to pick a spot. Is there a favorite spot that most people go to? They have to park. How close do they park? How far away do they park? They have to open their door. Do they hesitate to open their door because there's things in their way or they might bang their door? Every single small step along the way belongs in your customer journey mapping because it will help you more intimately understand your ICP and use that in your go-to-market strategies. A little bit more. When they walk in your store, do they tend to turn right first or left first? Do they go down the second aisle or the first aisle? When they stop to buy drinks, where do they stop? Those types of things. Map the entire journey along the way. highlight the pain points and opportunities to optimize. Best practices for this: identify the key touch points, gather data when possible. Analytics could be important, the number of uses of a particular pump. And then use that map to pay attention to where you can improve. Really, really, really important. Okay, one more, A/B testing. So A/B testing is when you do various trials with customers or prospects. A/B testing, you basically compare different versions of a product or different versions of go-to-market campaigns to determine which is going to perform better. For example, if you have a physical product that has color to it, maybe you do one prototype that's blue and one prototype that's red and see which one sells the best. That's an example of A/B testing. You could run a marketing campaign on social media that talks to attorneys that are estate planners that work with single moms from the previous lesson, or you could run another campaign that tests ads for attorneys that do estate planning for single dads and see which gets the best response rate. That is A/B testing. I find it important to test one variable at a time. So when you're doing A/B or split testing, sometimes it's called, make sure you don't change up too many variables. Test one variable at a time, blue versus red, not blue and square versus red and rectangle. And use a large enough sample size. A/B testing doesn't work if you do this with 5 people. You need to do it with a larger sample size. And then analyze the results and use those to make decisions about your product. Okay, now I'm going to give you, if you've stuck with me this whole time, I'm going to share with you my secret weapon for customer research methodologies. This is my favorite method, hands down. It's going to be similar to one of the ones I talked about earlier, but it's distinct enough that I want to bring it up. My favorite special secret weapon for customer research methodology is forums and reviews, particularly forums and reviews that are talking about your competitors. So if you're familiar with Reddit, R-E-D-D-I-T, it's a website where people get on and talk about interests. They will often get on there and talk about interests in different products, what they hate, what they like. For example, if you have the handout open and you scroll down, you'll see that I pulled a screenshot of a person that was talking about their frustration with the iPad. And they were sharing that it's their favorite device. Yet, they still went to a forum to complain about the product's usability. This is really important to pay attention to. Specifically, the user was talking about the inability to do split screen functionality. The review is from years ago before the iPad could do that. What do you think that did for Apple if they were paying attention to that? That was another person that was asking for split screen. And when more and more and more and more people asked for split screen, eventually the product manager at Apple wanted to add split screen. So those types of things, forums, reviews, rating systems for restaurants, you might like to go to Yelp and see how lots of people rate restaurants or your competitor rates restaurants. When they rate them, how do they talk about them? If you're selling products on Amazon, go to competitor products and see the reviews. Look at the 1 and 2 star reviews and see what they complain about. If they complain about the product's too big or too small, then you know you need to make your product and change it according to those types of reviews if there's enough of them. So my secret weapon for customer research methodologies is forums and reviews, and you should be using that for your go-to-market strategy.